Thanks for the nice welcome and the very not awkward handshake just now. I completely underestimated this event, but I'm happy to be here and very honored to have been asked to talk about the wealth of Europe. I am part of Fridays for Future. A little disclaimer, if you are not yet involved in climate strikes, please get involved. It's quite important. I thought what I could talk to you about today, what is there that hasn't been said yet. After I looked through the program of this week, I realized there's a lot that's being said. So today I want to take a rather personal approach to the issue of wealth and talk about the three biggest misconceptions of my personal understanding of wealth that I had to discover last year. As most of you probably know, we have been school striking for just 14 months just now. When we started in December 2018, it seems like a lifetime ago, the debate around the climate crisis was a very different one. And to my understanding, all that was needed was to put the issue back on the agenda, back on top of the agenda, where it belongs. Because as you know, there was a Paris Agreement being signed in 2015, and actually it seemed like we had made a plan that would guarantee us to grow old on a safe planet. Hence, I just thought, well, people seem to have forgotten about this, but it doesn't matter, we will friendly remind them, and in a very respectful way, demand them to act accordingly. So, we started striking, and obviously I studied geography, so I've been studying about the climate crisis for more than 4 years just now. It seemed absurd even that the climate was being ignored in such almost radical way. When we started striking, we were on our way not to a 2-degree warmer world, but to a 5-degree warmer world. And you might think, well, 2 and 5 degrees, what does it matter? If 2 is okay and 5 is just more than double of okay, how bad can it really be? In fact, it's dramatic. And even when we started striking, the numbers were clear, the numbers were very concrete, and were very concretely pointing out the fact that we are running towards a world where the lives of billions of people would be at stake. So we put this on our cardboards and hold this up in front of the ministries, in front of the parliament, in front of the offices of all sorts of politicians. And just to make this clear, I cannot emphasize enough how crucial this was for us back then. The science was so clear, the science was so well, almost hard to bear, that it seemed absurd to me that once we started striking, we wouldn't talk about the climate, we would start talking about school skipping. But then we kept on going, and we were very much stuck in this mindset of we mobilize, and then people will wake up, and then they will act. That was what we kind of imagined. So we did what we could, we started mobilizing. And 1 month after we started striking, we had a big nationwide strike in Berlin where 10,000 people turned up. Today, I kind of laugh at the number, but back then it seemed like half of Berlin was just there striking with us. It seems to us that if we can make 10,000 people come to this demonstration organized by kids and very young and very, very inexperienced people, what else could we do if we really wanted? So obviously, given all those experiences of more and more people turning up to our strikes, it felt to me that the next step, which was the waking up part of this, would just been within reach. So we sat down with all sorts of politicians, with decision makers, and talked about the need to wake up to this. We talked about how every fraction of a degree matters. We talked about how a 2-degree warmer world would for Germany mean that every second summer would be unprecedented. that every second summer would be a summer we have never experienced before. Every second summer would be a summer that destroys livelihoods, industries, takes away what farmers and agricultures had worked for centuries. Every second summer would be a summer where people would die because of the heat, where children would have a hard time struggling with the drought. Every second summer would be yet again another extreme, and yet again we would know that it would only be the herald for the more extreme summer yet to come. So as we sat down with our ministers and talked about all those things, talked about why we should wake up and why we then need to act, I discovered that there will never be any kind of climate action that is somewhere close to enough when we don't understand what wealth really means. This was when I was sitting down with Peter Altmaier, Minister of Economy, and he told me, well, Luisa, thanks for pointing all those things out, and I too am worried about the climate crisis, but you know what? We can't do any climate action as long as it's touching our people's wealth, our nation's wealth. I was speechless, obviously. What kind of thinking would that be, where you assume that inaction on climate would protect any form of wealth there could be? Yet he isn't the only one thinking this way. This is common sense. This is what people call rational thinking. This is what people call maturity. This is what people think makes this country as great as they think it is. So when we don't question and challenge our understanding of wealth, we won't get anywhere. This was the first misconception made pretty much 1 year ago. So what is it that constitutes our wealth? Commonly in Germany, as Peter Altmaier told me, wealth is what makes your GDP grow. As long as your GDP grows, there's wealth increasing in your country, and the people will be wealthier. That is what we think wealth is. I find this a little absurd. Hence, we have long been discovering that GDP itself won't make anyone happy. So when you get there, you discover that wealth and happiness isn't connected. It isn't even interlinked. It isn't something where you would make a natural connection. It is something that is watched by economics on the one side and social scientists on the other side. So when I was sitting there with Peter Altmaier 1 year ago, listening to his idea of what wealth is and what wealth means for a country like us and what wealth means for potential climate action, I first found out that we have to go the long way, and that talking about the climate itself won't do it. Ultimately, this means the way our ecosystem function, the way our planet works, and the way nature thrives or dies can't be adjusted to the theory of wealth that is not only outdated but ignorant. It must be the other way around. So we need to start questioning what is it that people need, what is it that a country needs, and what is it that we need for our country to thrive and for people to experience wealth in a very personal way. And that is not taking the GDP as an answer to everything, but that is on the other side imagining what indicators there could be for us to measure wealth with. We know for a long time that it's inequality that makes people unhappy, and that it's quality and equality that people ask for. We know that immaterial matters such as health, such as happiness, such as happy relationships is what makes people feel wealth. And it is usually not anymore, in Germany at least, material things that we need for us to thrive. Hence, when do we get to the point where we draw this connection and where we discover that understanding of wealth, funded in a very material understanding of growth, has no future. Secondly, when we talk of wealth, we usually talk of something that is adjusted and rooted within a society or within a country. It is a society that is worthy. It's a country that's worthy. It is Peter Altmaier traveling to the World Economic Forum in Davos, being told that his country is so worthy and that they're doing so well. Luckily, in this country, it's not just economics who make decisions, but it's also people. So what we need, after we've uncovered the real meaning of wealth and the real potential of a fruitful understanding of wealth, we need to talk about people's individual experience with wealth. Because ultimately, what we need for the social change that are required is masses demanding changes. But if those masses aren't aware of how much suffering is in our common understanding of wealth, they won't be mobilized. They won't wake up. They won't speak up. And they eventually will vote for the same old parties that have created a lot of the mess we're in right now. So what does it mean? Well, we know that through the climate crisis and various other crises, everything will change. The big question is, by design or by disaster? So the threat ultimately arises from inaction and not from action. However, as long as we tell the people that they will be prevented from facing changes in our wealth, in our economy, in our GDP, people won't vote for change. The idea of endless growth of our GDP that is rooted in our material understanding doesn't work out on a finite planet. So it's only when people actually start understanding how much they need, what they ask from life, what makes them happy, they can start understanding how much suffering they are currently bearing and how they can be freed from the suffering. This might sound very abstract, but by the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, how do we get to the people who are currently fearing that things will change? It is those people who are right now the reason of political inaction in every aspect. It is the fear of the fear that forces our politicians to remain in the 20th century. So what we need, not only for changes in political system, but to mobilize people that we urgently need, is we need to reframe what makes us happy. Imagine we started freeing us from the idea that the destruction of livelihoods, nature, and ecosystem would make us richer and worthier. And we started opening up to the idea that true freedom and true wealth lies within their very protection. Hence, let's redefine what we consider as well-being on a very, very personal note. And this starts with you here in this room. This starts with you questioning yourself what makes you happy and what you consider to be wealth and what kind of understanding of wealth you would like to see in the world. And it grows further. But unless we don't start touching our personal, our societal, our political, and our economic understanding of wealth, we will not get anywhere, not in social transformation, not in climate action. I have asked about 300,000 people on a strike in Berlin to join us on the next strike. And I don't know if they will turn up again when we strike next globally. But what is for true, the people who commit to change making, the people who commit to creating futures, are the ones who have started questioning what they want from life. And in a society that is so closely connected to an understanding of wealth, we need to challenge that very paradigm. So after we've challenged our measurement of growth and wealth, and after we started asking us individually what we want from life and what wealth is, we need to take it to the next level, and that's the third big misconception, is that wealth is something that relies within nation states. We are measuring our growth, our GDP, on a nation-based assumption. It is obviously ironic, given that for hundreds of years, we as a society have exploited countless and countless and countless of countries around the world. We have exploited workers, we have exploited ecosystems for what we call our wealth. Assuming now that wealth is something that lies within borders is obviously weird, but yet it's the way we approach this. So the answer to 150 years of injustice and exploitation must be an understanding of wealth that considers justice at its core. What do I mean by this? What we are doing in Germany right now obviously isn't a concept that you can copy. You can't copy our understanding of wealth and use it in other countries, in other parts of the world. It would simply overwhelm the capacity of a planet. Yet, what we need eventually is a sustainable understanding of growth and wealth that lies in quality of life, and in the protection of ecosystems. This is why our understanding of wealth ultimately crosses borders and considers globalization as something that we need to incorporate in our wealth paradigm that we want to see in the future. Or put in other words, there is no wealth without justice. There is no wealth and nation states. There's only wealth for society and people, no matter where they are. Hence, wealth is something that needs for us to be taken internationally. In Europe, we are in the very fortunate situation that what we are doing here and what we are creating here in terms of futures, in terms of understandings of wealth, is often seen as a role model internationally. That is dangerous, obviously, because there's a lot of responsibility on this. But there also lies hope within the role of Europe in our future understanding of wealth. Imagine we created a society that was wealthy and sustainable, a society that was wealthy yet just, that was wealthy yet equal, that was wealthy yet grounded in lively ecosystems. It could be something that made the world see what is possible. We are right now in the process of discussing a European Green Deal. Sadly enough, it is probably the most progressive piece of legislation there is on a European level. I find this tiring and sad, given that the Green Deal is something that is so insufficient for the needs of a continent, but maybe it is what we have to work with right now. But yet there we know that a Green Deal for Europe can only work if it considers wealth from east and west, from north and south, from the very poor and the very rich, and from our ecosystem that we need to thrive. Hence, I ask us to redefine our understanding of wealth on a social, on an individual, on a European, and finally on a global level. We are right now in a historic moment of time. The year 2020 will for us define whether we can reach a 2-degree target or not. This is the year we say hi or goodbye to the Paris Agreement as we made it. As we know that there cannot be any climate action as long as we pretend to protect wealth without acting on climate, we need to get going quickly. We need to start redefining how we measure wealth. We need to start redefining how we experience wealth. And we need to finally redefine how wealth works on a global scale. But as long as we keep exploitation and endless growth as something that we won't give up, climate justice will be an unreachable utopia, and justice on a global scale just as well. we have the chance this year to make an actual difference. We have the chance this year for Europe to become the first continent on a pathway to a Paris-conform future, or we can let go of one of the most important achievements of our diplomatic present, which is a global community that has decided to tackle the climate. I find this scary, and I find this a huge burden on our shoulders. I don't know whether we will achieve with letting go of our outdated understanding of wealth and started understanding that there can only be wealth on a healthy planet. Yet, since everything is going to change, we might as well make it a good change. And I would ask you all to join us on this. Fridays for Future is striking again on April 24th. It is one of the most difficult times for us to mobilize because people think we have done enough, while the need for us to strike is bigger than ever because action hasn't been taken. And we now know that if we let go of all that has already been done, if we don't increase the pressure, we won't be able to stick to the Paris Agreement. So, in an effort to create true wealth, in an effort to demand real climate action, we need to confront ourselves with outdated wealth ideas while pushing for action on climate, despite a large number of people trying to prevent us from that. We are stronger than those who still believe that we are stuck in the 20th century. And we are stronger than those who believe that wealth is something that arises from GDP growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Luisa.
Dankeschön.